everyone.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to start with Mr. Peter Van Praag.
Thanks very much, and thank you for being here this morning. We've had an incredibly successful and important meeting here in Halifax over the past 3 days. Our conversations were engaging, and they were frank. And in my opinion, they were important. Participants at this year's forum tackled a wide range of issues, talking about nuclear weapons, talking about the weaponization of capital, talking about the possibility of a rapprochement, the possibility and the wisdom of a rapprochement with Russia. And we talked about increasing the number of women involved in security and in conflict situations. And with that in mind, I want to specifically thank Minister Sajjan and General Vance for their leadership on this issue and for ensuring that this issue was brought forward to the top of the agenda at this year's Halifax International Security Forum. We had a panel called Making Peace with Women, and I have received incredibly strong feedback on the importance of not only the panel, but the consequences and the follow-up to that panel. And Canada's leadership on this is not only important, it's inspirational. With that in mind, we did announce the Halifax Peace with Women Fellowship that we're very proud of, and we're looking forward to implementing that program with fellows finishing their fellowship that will be in Ottawa, Waterloo, Silicon Valley, and Washington, D.C., and ending up here next year at the 10th Halifax International Security Forum. We also announced the creation of the Halifax John McCain Prize for Courage in Public Service. The forum has always stood for the values of strong and courageous leadership in defense of freedom and democracy, and we're very proud that Senator John McCain, who has been here at every forum up until this time, has associated his name with Halifax International Security Forum, and we look forward to welcoming him here next year to present the award to the first recipient. The Halifax International Security Forum also brought our conversations to the broader community like never before. We had an event on Thursday night for the first time at Dalhousie University. That was the kickoff event to a series that we are calling Halifax Chats that will continue in a series of 4 conversations in Washington, D.C., one in February, March, April, and May. And we look forward to welcoming you all there to what will be important conversations, again, on global issues with Canadian leadership and American leadership as well. And as I mentioned on Friday, we also launched a new podcast. It is called Pete and Steve's The World. It is insightful, it is irreverent, and it is funny. And some would say it's the most important podcast in the world. I've heard some people say that. Some people. There's now officially no excuse for not joining the conversation about democracy, defense, and global security. All of this would not have been possible without the terrific hospitality of the people of Halifax. This great historic port city provides an ideal background for discussions of defense and security. And I have no individual to thank more than Minister Harjit Sajjan, who I am so proud to stand beside today. Thank you, Minister.
Well, Peter, once again, thank you very much for the tremendous work of you and your team. And I also want to give a special thanks to Halifax. It really is a remarkable place. The people had a wonderful chat at a restaurant that I haven't been to before, and it really just increased the ambiance. And more importantly, there was a new route for the run today. So that was
Including me.
quite special, and got to go to the anchor and have that picture, and it was and that's what this is about, is be able to, while we talk about, have important discussions, is also learn about the place that we're in, and to showcase it to the rest of the world. So that was very nice, and this has been it was quite the opening, I believe, right from the get-go with the Secretary General. We started with a really, I think, a robust discussion that set the tone for the rest of the conference, and especially when right off the bat we were able to discuss, I think, one of the most important issues of our time, which is. We talk about women's rights. Women's rights are human rights, and we need to do more about this. And we're talking about the security challenges that we face in the world. And if we don't touch 50% of the population, well, guess what? There's maybe a reason why we're not progressing as fast enough. So I'm really thankful to you for bringing this topic and discussion to the forefront. And I know that things are going to move extremely well forward. And it's been quite a busy week and a half for me. We had the NATO Defense Ministerial with a Counter Daesh meeting at the margins, and then in Vancouver with the United Nations Peacekeeping Conference for Defense Ministers, and had so many other folks come there, where the Prime Minister launched our contribution to our peace support operations, an initiative that will enhance peace support operations for the UN, and then to come here to Halifax and wrap it all up, to talk about important discussions and have what I think probably one of the most unique and intimate conversations, where we can be very frank with each other, bring in that experience, and I think we accomplished that again in a very unique way. And I like the fact that the new initiatives that you're putting forward, that we're going to be able to continue and evolve this forum, so that we can stay even relevant and look at what type of discussions we've had in the past, what has worked, what hasn't, and just keep that discussion going. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We'll open for questions, and we'll start with Valerie on this side.
Hi, Valerie Zeno with Defense News. I have a question for Minister Sajjan. So currently Canada is considering buying used Hornets from Kuwait or Australia because of the feud we're going with Bombardier. And I've heard people say that this decision is a case of the Canadian government prioritizing its trade agenda over national defense. Can you kind of give a little bit of explanation of Canada's thinking on that? And also on the same topic, if you buy the used Hornets, they're going to need their service life extended, and with the cost and the time that it's going to take to do that, doesn't it make more sense just to move to a new fighter procurement?
That's a really good question, but I'm going to explain to you the analysis that we've conducted. First of all, the new defense policy that Canada has put out has put a significant commitment to defense, not only for Canada, but more importantly, our engagement in the world. A substantial increase, not only in monetary means, a 70% increase by 2026 in our budget alone. Our entire Navy will be outfitted with new ships. Air Force, our Army, including our Special Forces, new initiatives, increasing our size and great engagement in the world. So when it comes to our fighter fleet, these planes should have been replaced a long time ago, but they weren't. And what we want to do is we've already committed to 3 initiatives for this replacement. One is a competition that's going to be based and built on the requirements, and what those requirements, nations, companies can compete into that. So we've already started the initial steps for that. We're investing in the legacy fleet to making sure that our current aircraft, we're going to be able to utilize them for the transition it's going to take. But when it comes to the interim, we as Canada have made a commitments to our NORAD and NATO commitments, and currently we can't meet those commitments simultaneously. We've been risk managing, so we want to simultaneously commit to do this. The only way to do this is to fill this interim capability gap. So yes, we've already actually launched the competition. We're already in the early steps for that process. We're investing in the legacy fleet. What we're doing is an addition is making sure that our Canadian Armed Forces are well looked after, that our commitments are well looked after, so that we're investing additional money. We were in discussions with the U.S. government for looking at buying new Super Hornets, but with Boeing launching this trade dispute against our aerospace sector, which myself as a representative of the government find completely unacceptable, and we asked him to publicly withdraw that trade dispute. This has made us look at other options, and we are now looking at options with Australia for this. But we are committed to filling this intercapability gap, because not only we want to make sure that our armed forces has the new equipment, we want to make sure that even during that transition, we look after them. And the final thing I want to say about the defense policy, our number one asset is always our people, and we're going to be looking after them, building their resiliency, and all those capabilities that we talk about are secondary only to them.
So with the interim fighters, if you guys are not looking at the Boeing Super Hornets because of the trade dispute, I mean, isn't that basically saying that you're prioritizing trade over your national defense agenda?
On the contrary, we're launching that competition. When it comes to anybody that's attacking our aerospace sector and our jobs, our relationships, when this impacts our economy, where the economy impacts defense, and the last thing you want to do is, for example, when it comes to, we're prioritizing making sure that our Canadian Armed Forces has all the tools necessary. We also need to protect our economy as well, because that impacts defense and all government departments.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Vanner with Defense One. One of the topics I didn't hear as much as I expected this week was, frankly, Syria and the future of the ISIS war, how it's going to end. In the United States, we're hearing we're not hearing much. We're hearing only that the hope is that the Geneva process will take this out. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about Canada's position, your own thoughts, both on the continuance of forces in Syria, not just Canadian, but allies as well, I know, your position, but also on the leadership of that process and how much you think should come from the United States, from other countries, from the West at all, as it moves forward to some sort of peace table.
Well, the first thing that we're looking at is making sure from a security and defense perspective is to eliminate the main threat, which is Daesh. And that has gone extremely well. 95% of the territory in Iraq has been retaken, and resources are being adjusted to making sure that the capability is increased for the Iraqi security forces, so the threat like this, if ever was to pop up again, they're able to deal with it. We need to now work very hard to making sure that in the early root cause that created this problem is not that situation not created again for this. In regards to Syria, obviously there is the greater complexity with Russia's increased involvement there, but good coordination has been done for the defeat of Daesh. Raqqa has been retaken, and our government's position has always been, until there is an actual mechanism and a government structure in place, it's difficult to move forward in this. But at the end of the day, we need to focus on the main threat, and we're hopeful through those discussions that a governance structure can be created that'll pull Syria out of this horrible mess that it's in.
I can follow too. The Turkish Chad was here this week and gave a pretty fiery speech, not unexpected though, but really hitting hard on the use of Kurdish fighters, which is the backbone of the American strategy there. A lot of folks, especially American special operators, think that we're heading toward a real conflict point between Turkey and the Kurds and the West. Well, what is your reaction to that speech, to his comments? The number one threat to all of us has been Daesh, and we've seen this. The safe havens that Daesh had created within that region had to be dismantled, because it's not just a threat to its own the regional stability, but their ability to plan attacks in our nations as well. It had to be dealt with. I know that Secretary Mattis takes great pains to making sure that we're looking at all the various dynamics, as we all do. Our support for the Peshmerga that we had provided, we always worked with the Iraqi government, and also spoke with Turkish counterparts as well.
Canadians have not had any involvement with the PKK, and we're working through that. But we need to focus on, at the same time, Daesh needs to be defeated if we're going to have any type of lasting peace, and more importantly, prevent these type of attacks. It is an extremely complicated situation, but we need to be able to focus on the main threat as we look at resolving the wider security issue.
Next question? Yeah.
Nasser Husseini from Al Jazeera, the Washington Bureau. Sir, I was wondering, following up a little bit on the Middle East, you have 2 points of friction right now. We've seen lately a Saudi move on Iran. I'm wondering to which extent, from a strategic point of view, that would, where do you situate yourself? We've seen also a campaign, a sudden embargo against Qatar, one of your allies there. And everybody's in the Middle East. The Americans, the Turks have pushed now a couple of thousand of troops into Qatar. We also know that there are a couple of thousand of Egyptian troops stand by in UAE. Many complex data in that situation. So where is NATO in this looming, at least in the local media, we're talking about a looming war. It's coming up in a matter of days, weeks maybe. Where is NATO for that? Qatar, Saudi Arabia, that trio, and Iran. This is the trio.
Well, first of all, regional stability is extremely important. And when regional stability breaks down, groups like Daesh are able to form and take territory and create threats for all our nations. And hence the reason why a coalition was created, to making sure that it's defeated, and great work is being done. And I think that all nations need to keep this in mind, that given the complexity of the regional dynamics, that we can't allow any type of, we talk about radical groups. I mean, Daesh is now to the extreme. We can't allow groups like this or Daesh 2.0 to be created. So from a Canadian perspective, we do always take regional security in mind. When we launched our revamped mission, what we call Operation Impact, is not just what we did in Iraq from a whole of government perspective, but we also focused on our support to Jordan and Lebanon as well. So we will work with our partners for regional stability.
But this time, I was hoping if you could comment on the Saudi initiatives in that area. Washington is aware. I'm pretty sure that Ottawa is aware too. This changes the strategic picture we had until 6 months ago. The Russians in Syria, a move by the Saudis towards the Iranians. I'm wondering how NATO is right now evaluating this new moving sands of that area.
I just want to repeat what I just said. It's important for all parties, not only in the region that are involved, that we look at, make sure that we have regional stability. And if we don't, groups like Daesh are able to work through those cracks and reform and reconstitute, and we can't have that. So we'll continue to work with our allied partners on the capacity building side, do our part where we can, and we're closely monitoring the regional dynamics as we speak.
Thank you. Steve?
Minister, I wanted to ask you, how open are you to providing Ukraine with defensive weapons as they're requesting?
Our support to Ukraine has been steadfast, not only with troops. We've evolved our relationship even further. We signed a defense cooperation agreement. We're working to the next step now. I met with Minister Poltrak on a number of occasions on having our officials start working out a plan. And what we want to do is not just about equipment. Equipment is one thing, you can deliver it, but if you don't know how to utilize it, then its effect is useless. What we want to do is come up with what type of capacity the Ukrainian Armed Forces, where do they see themselves? And then what type of capabilities are required for it. We have troops on the ground to help with that training. So as we decide upon, or they decide upon what are their needs, we can actually now link in some of our training to making sure when the capability does arrive, they're actually able to utilize it. And I saw 2 examples where that's not working, where some nations have given it communication equipment, but they don't know how to utilize it, so they go back to Motorola. So that doesn't help the situation. or you have a Roll 2 hospital in terms of equipment, phenomenal capability that's needed. But if you don't know how to use it, it's sitting in sea containers. So what we've taken is we've looked at some of the needs, some of the gaps, especially when it came to the medical side. Adjustments were made, and our troops on the ground started with initial medical training, and now from individual first aid to casualty collection point, and they have a brand new, modernized actually field kit that's given. Now we're actually expanding that. Now imagine what that does to a capability. Yes, it's not, that's so important to any type of combat situation, because if somebody's injured and they don't know how to take care of themselves, they're going to die. If all of a sudden you just put them in a vehicle and try to get them to the hospital, they're going to die along the way. So we're offering some substantial training that's saving people's lives. And so the example that I'm trying to show here is any capability that we end up providing, what we want to do is build their capacity to be able to utilize it, because the effect is going to be determined, but how they use it. And through our defense cooperation agreement, it's going to allow us to broaden the scope of what they're able to access. But more importantly, with our troops on the ground, we're able to give them the right training. But we need to even think broader than that, the support for Ukraine. The free trade agreement is extremely important. At the end of the day, the best security for Ukraine and the best message that it sends to Russia, when Ukraine is succeeding, their people are succeeding, despite the illegal annexation of Crimea, despite what Russia is actually doing in the Donbass area, and the economy is growing and the people are resilient and doing the great things that they do. That is the best message to send. So then that's what Canada's trying to, how Canada's trying to support Ukraine.
Minister, yesterday we heard from the head of the U.S. Strategic Command talk about what would happen if he were given the order to launch a nuclear strike against a foreign nation. And he came out and said, if I consider the order unlawful, I'm not going to do it. It got me thinking, what would happen if that order was given? Does Canada get a phone call in that situation? Have you had this conversation with your counterpart?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the internal mechanisms of how other nations work, I don't comment on that. We don't have any nuclear weapons. We have really do have a very unique binational command through NORAD. We have some great relationships, and we work through many of the security challenges. I mean, I talked to Secretary Mattis on a number of occasions, especially when there's issues that have popped up, and that's just a testament to our relationship. And so we have our military structure and processes there, but I have my direct relationship with Secretary Mattis, where we talk about certain issues.
Evidently, the U.S. president has raised the specter of nuclear weapons. Has that pushed you to have this direct conversation about nuclear arms with Secretary Mattis?
We talk, Secretary Mattis and I talk about security issues on a number of fronts. One aspect that we always focus on, making sure that diplomacy has an opportunity to succeed. And that's what, but any military, including ours, are always there to be there as a last resort. But that's a path that no one wants to go down. Diplomacy can work and must work, and we need to support it.
Thank you. Here, and then we'll have time for one more question.
Hi, Vivian Mashi with National Defense Magazine. I wanted to ask you about some of your future technology investments. There was a lot of conversation yesterday about the need to invest in artificial intelligence, machine learning, cyber capabilities. So can you talk a bit about some of your near-term investments there? And also, I know in your new defense policy, you talked about how you're looking to invest in training simulators and that sort of technology. So what are you doing in terms of virtual reality, augmented reality, that kind of technology?
When it comes to innovation in general, our government has put a substantial effort onto this. We have our Minister of Science, Minister Duncan, is doing tremendous work in making sure that the universities have the right research funding so we can make sound decisions as a government. And Minister Baines has the responsibility for the wider innovation agenda. But national defense, as part of our defense policy, we do actually have our own innovation initiative as well, which we will be launching fairly shortly. And with this innovation, what we're going, it was actually created in consultation with industry on how can our industry, how can we work together and look at not just for the things that we need now, how do we look at solving some of the problems that we might face into the future? So I'm very actually quite excited about this. Especially when it comes to, we're looking at the the tremendous use of artificial intelligence into the future and the capabilities that it could provide, but we're also extremely mindful of the negative impact that can actually have as well. So we're going to be monitoring this very closely, just like with any type of innovation and technology. It can be used for good, and it also could be used for a very disruptive manner as well. The augmented reality, in fact, I like seeing the technology myself, and had some of our key leadership in the military start looking at the uses. It's not just about the technology itself. Some people actually may have working on an idea, but they have no idea that they can actually solve a problem over here because they haven't connected. So in addition to investing in and coming up with new solutions to things, and what we want to do is have a much better partnership. That's what we learned when we conducted our defense policy review with the Canadian industry, and I look forward to kind of developing this further.
Thanks. Right at the back. Yep.
Following up on the cybersecurity issue, I was hoping you could talk a little about the online disinformation campaign targeting Canadian troops in Latvia. Have we seen these kind of threats in other battlefields, and what is the Canadian forces doing?
First of all, I should explain that even though what we see here now in the cyber domain when it comes to fake news, these are type of things that were happening before there really was a social media or using this platform. It was done in other ways. We saw this in Afghanistan. We saw it in other. You're basically using other type of methodology. So one thing, this is not new. This is just a platform to be able to elevate it for negative purposes. Having said this, because we already had we've got some good experience on this, what this allowed us to do before we deployed our troops, to give them the right type of training, to making sure that our networks were protected, making sure that so that they knew that negative stuff might be written about them, and it's completely false. And so I've been actually quite impressed with our Enhanced Forward Battle Group, the leadership that's there, with all the different nations, of what they've been doing. The best way to diffuse any type of fake news is actually go reach out to the communities itself. So not only they're doing tremendous training, learning from one another, doing interoperability training and meeting the NATO's needs, and sending a phenomenal strategic message to Russia, they're actually connecting with the community. And when you meet one-on-one and learn from one another, it's very difficult for somebody to come in and saying, oh, no, you're actually, this is how these people think. And so Canadians are always going to do what they do best, go out and build relationships, but at the same time, demonstrate the resolve in a phenomenal way. I'm just very impressed by that. On the wider piece, we are investing quite heavily in terms of making sure that our systems are well protected, and that's because we do have some tremendous talent to help us build the capabilities, and we will always stay at the cutting edge in this domain.
Thank you very much, everybody. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to Mr. Doyle or myself. And have a great day.
Great, thank you very much, everyone.